We are now live. I was trying to give everybody a heads up, but it's last notice. So I'm going to talk to University of St. Augustine's physical therapy program, and we're going to chit chat a little bit. So I'm going to see if I can get some things underway, get hooked up here. If anybody's on, great. If not, it's all good. Um, so just announcing this now to the other group here. See if I can get this on here. This phone might be a little get set up here. Okay, one set up there. Going to be on IG, and then we're going to do this other location, Ring Central. So see if my connection works. We are now live now on IG. We're going to be live on YouTube. We're going to talk to the physical therapy department for physical therapy department for St. Augustine. We'll see if we can get set up here. So people who log on, hey, what's up? What's up? We're just going to talk about my story and journey, nothing crazy. Get these questions a lot from physical therapy students. So literally just trying to share because there's so many messages to get on. So just trying to share the news. That's basically it for physical therapy students. So let me log on here on this other device. And then we'll be ready to get started with some questions. See if we can join here. Perfect. I think we got everybody in. Okay, let's see here. I think we're waiting on some more people to arrive.
Hi everyone, we're about to start in
Hope you guys can hear this.
I think Dr. Brooks just logged in, yes.
Trying to unmute myself. See if it'll let me. Let's see. Join audio. Unmute. Huh. Ooh, sorry for technical difficulties here. See what do I need to do to allow myself to get into Ring Central. Ooh, technical difficulties, how embarrassing. Okay, let's see. Allow the microphone and the camera. Join the meeting again. Oof. I thought I did this well, but I didn't. Sorry, St. Augustine. We're going to get you guys situated. I promise. Logging in. I think everything should be setting up now. Perfect. Now we're in. Okay. There we go. We're in.
Great. All right. I think we can go ahead and get started. You can hear me, right?
Perfect. Yes, I can. Just trying to make sure I turn up. There we go. Turn up the volume there. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. You're set.
Dr. Brooks, I'm not sure if you're hearing us, but it does say that you're muted on our end, so we can't hear you.
Perfect. I can hear you guys now.
Perfect. There we go. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started. So good evening, everyone. My name is Meenakshi Augustine. I'm a third term DPT student, and I serve as VP for advocacy for the SPTA. And I'd like to welcome you guys for tonight's event hosted by the SPTA. Tonight we have our guest speaker, Dr. Vanessa Brooks. She is a licensed doctor of physical therapy, athletic trainer, as well as a human and player performance specialist for the NBA's Oklahoma City Thunder. Dr. Brooks is going to discuss a topic called Women in Ortho, which is exciting. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome you guys, Dr. Vanessa Brooks. And Dr. Brooks, you're welcome to take the floor.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and I really appreciate the time to speak with the physical therapy department and other students. Just to talk a little bit about my journey. I do not want to take lightly being in the physical therapy realm or pro sports, but I do want to encourage a lot of people that all ethnicities, backgrounds, and genders, that it's not impossible to work in whatever realm you want to work in. So if I just wanted to briefly talk about just the path and the journey. So started off undergrad. Everyone has done undergrad if you're in physical therapy school. So I did exercise and sports science and athletic training. So when I did at that time, athletic training could be an undergraduate degree. Now it's a master's. So when I did that, I worked just clinical rotations, just like you would do with any sports. So did that, and then went on to working with the um, work doing going to physical therapy school. So I went to Emory, and as that in that physical therapy program, I just like with any program, you learn from other people different backgrounds. So I learned people in undergraduate degrees did art history, geology, engineering. So it was like really great to hear that you didn't have to do pre-physical therapy to do physical therapy school or be successful in it. So as I was there in that physical therapy program, I wanted to get involved. I knew I probably wouldn't be hired by the physical therapy program to work in sports, but I wanted to shadow. So I did just wanted to volunteer, just did it freely, just saying, hey, can I just stop by the training room? Can I just, pick your brain? And any physical therapists or athletic trainers that come in, it's a Division III school. I knew I wasn't going to see too much, but I still wanted to like just, seize the opportunity as much as I could. So while I was there, I was able to shadow a lot of great people who either one was at UGA already, which is great. A lot of coming from other backgrounds and doing their masters in athletic training, or were athletic trainers. So it was like really good setup. As I went through my clinical rotations, the way Emory is, we do our rotations our second year. So within our second year of the program, I did acute care and all of the like outpatient and other settings that required to do. But as I did my rotations, I realized like I really like acute care, and I realized that you don't have to, say if you want to do sports, you want to do orthopedics, you don't have to just focus in only on orthopedics. You can learn from neuro, you can learn from other avenues, and that's what I wanted to get from my clinical rotations is glean from as much information as I can, learn from different aspects and settings because they all intermix, they all interact with one another. And as I was doing more sports, whether shadowing, you got to see a lot, whether, God forbid, when we had, or should say, when someone had an injury, a C-spine injury or anything that was emergency, we were able to see how the neuro plays a role, the orthopedics played a role in stabilizing the spine, the sports for them to see what can we adapt, how we can get them to back on track to do some type of sports for whatever they can, whether it's adjusting for what they can perform. So those things were like really cool. And as I got towards the end of physical therapy, my last year, I took on like a head athletic training position with a high school. I don't advise people to do that, but it was something that I wanted to do as our last year PT school. We do research and electives. So when we do electives, we have a little bit more freedom and leeway to do other things. So at Atlanta Public Schools was a high school that I went ahead and wanted to just put to use my athletic training degree, but also not take up too much of my time with physical therapy. So as I was doing that, that's when I discovered Duke's sports residency program, and I realized for females, you might have to do a little bit more to get some of the attention for some of these sports programs. It could be Division I, it could be a lot of levels. So me having a high school experience, and I knew I was going to work probably in the hospital, which is acute care, which is not sports related, but was ortho trauma. I knew I was going to gain some experience, but I knew probably not exactly what sports teams would be looking for. So while I decided when I graduated PT school, I was going to keep on that um, athletic training job with that high school. I got to learn about being very resourceful because the supplies and resources we had were very limited, but I was very grateful for the opportunity and I learned a lot. I was able to be exposed to a lot and then grow with other healthcare professionals. And that means from the physicians that worked with teams with Grady Hospital nearby, being able to work alongside with other athletic trainers and just pick their brains. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm glad I did as a student. Then when I graduate PT school, like keep networking. And it doesn't mean that person has to be above you or where you want to be. It could be, this athletic trainer that works at another high school. They may know even more than you. You can learn from them. They learn from you. So I like that idea. And as I was working then at a college, or I should say at Grady Hospital, Level 1 Trauma Center, that's when I was like, oh, let's, go to CSM. And CSM is combined sections meeting. You can go as a student, as a physical therapy student, you can go as a physical therapist. And while I was there, I learned about the sports section, which was called the sports section at that time. Learned about the sports section and just talking with people at a banquet. It was a sports banquet. No, I wasn't going to win any awards, but it was just like, I just wanted to talk to people. Ended up talking to the president at that time. Didn't know that, Mr. Jenkins. And then that's when he talked to me about like Duke sports residency program. At that time, he said fellowship. I thought I can get into the fellowship and realized you need to do the residency first. So apply for the residency program. My roommate at that time was applying and I wanted all peace. So I kind of held out, worked a little bit, did outpatient just for like a few months to kind of just expand and just learn from other settings instead of just the hospital. And then I applied for Duke's residency, got in. That residency gave me a great framework that went a little bit beyond, I would say, physical therapy school. So if I can allow people to understand physical therapy school is a great foundation, you get to learn like the general sense of physical therapy to be a generally practicing PT, basically. Do no harm. You can work in almost any setting to thrive and to actually go a little bit deeper. I do advise if you're not going to go into a setting where you have an actual mentor who's going to be with you, that you can check in with weekly or monthly, and physically work on your skills and how to improve and work on didactics, like educational things, I suggest go ahead and do a residency if you can. And that could be an orthopedic residency. I did a sports residency. And for me, I wanted to basically apply my athletic training stuff and my physical therapy things. So with a sports residency program, there is the governing body makes sure that everyone is doing what they need to do. So in this sense, we had didactic material. So kind of review of physical therapy stuff, but then adding on new things that you may see in the sports setting. That could be like, how to work on cervical spine, how to protect the spine, how to, simple things, taping an ankle. What if you get a post-surgical case? What are some of the surgical cases you may get? What did the surgery look like? And go from there. So we had those things. We watched surgery, which was great. So you can kind of see if you were to get an ACL patient post-op, pre-op, how do you actually manage that? Why are some protocols, or why do I not do certain things, say of a meniscal repair or a partial meniscectomy, I can get away with more things to do. So the residency helped with that sense. And then you worked in the clinic, which is very similar to being in an outpatient setting. So I like that idea. So I got to have my own patients, but then like once to twice a week, I shadowed my mentor, and then we talked about it and how we can improve on both ends. And then I worked on a patient when my mentor was observing and gave me some feedback along the way, which was good. So when you had that sense, and then they add on-site hours where actually the practicality of your residency or the athletic training sports medicine side comes out a lot more. So then you got to work with the high school, other sports residency programs. You can work with their college athletes, their collegiate athletes. At Duke, they only let you work with high school or recreational sports and those athletes. So I still gained a lot of experience on the outside looking in. It was like not working really Division I sports, but you got to really hone in on your skills. And say if you were to mess up on your taping, mess up on certain like physical therapy things, there were a lot more grace versus like you working with your revenue sports like football and basketball, and you're trying to get them to play, and you mess up on, some return to play, and you maybe make a decision that you didn't really have the experience for. So I do like the idea how my sports residency was made up, or how it was set up. And then lastly, as I was going through that, I also talked to a lot of people. Make sure you get on LinkedIn. At that time, I think my physical therapy school, I didn't have much to put on my LinkedIn, but it was like, yo, it's okay. I just put up you just put up like a nice portrait, put up a portrait. You could take the picture on your phone now. You don't have to do anything professional. And I just put, my goals. Now they have a bio you can put. You just put, a physical therapy student aspiring to work in sports, pro sports, or you could say MLB, whatever you want to do. And then talk about, I am finishing a physical therapy. My plan is to do X, Y, and Z. And so for me, what I use LinkedIn as, I put up my picture. I just put all my undergrad stuff on there, whether it was athletic training, sports medicine stuff, and just anything that was like community service, any shadowing, any volunteering I did, and literally put out there like, this is what I want to do. And then I try to follow as many people as I could. A lot of people did not accept my invitations, and that happens. A lot of professionals were like, who are you? Like when you're messaging them, asking them their journey, or noticing that people were just busy. So I put that out there. And so while I was in my residency program, I put that I was going to Duke, and I was getting messages. And one message in particular that I thought was spam was an actual person that worked with the Oklahoma City Thunder. And this medical director reached out to me and was just like, hey, Vanessa, I'm looking at your profile. It looks like you want to work in sports based on what you have and some of your experiences that you are working towards, like observing and volunteering in that aspect. Do you have time for a quick phone call? And of course, to be quite honest, I was getting my hair done at the time, and I looked at the message and I was like, oh no, LinkedIn has spam too. And so I was like, I don't even know, like, oh, this is like, man, I expect this from Facebook. I expect this from all these other social media pages. I was talking to my husband at the time. He was like, why don't you just look up the person first and see? Because you're thinking like, who would reach out to a student, you know? So then I looked up the person. I was like, oh, that is someone that I probably should be, talking with. So called spoke with that person, and literally we just talked. I just stated my goals. I want to work in pro sports, specifically basketball. I knew I came from a basketball family. I grew up playing basketball. My family, brothers, all that good stuff. So biggest thing, as we kept that communication open, nothing happened that year. Nothing happened the following year. So it was something like understanding like the seeds that you sow, you may not see them right away, but those relationships that you actually cultivate, they're going to grow into something. Because how sports and jobs work a lot of times is about who you know, who knows you. So if you're someone like, I don't know anybody, which I didn't know anybody. A lot of people didn't know me. I wanted to like, you know what? LinkedIn is a great like platform. Let me try to utilize like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to try to work towards that. And along the way, I was learning about different things like being a first responder. Like there's courses now. The APTA has like different companies that they have talked about, like Conscience Steps and other companies. When you go to CSM, you learn about some of these programs. You learn about different companies that you can, think about investing in. When I say invest, I don't mean stock. I mean invest in like, I'm going to do the, first responder course. And that first responder course, if I'm not an athletic trainer, that may allow me to cover that sport while I'm in physical therapy school, which is just like having basic first aid supplies, contacting the nearby hospital, letting them know that we're going to have an event, a soccer event this weekend. And, if I call 911, I just want to, guide or best guidance of like, where the emergency vehicle should be coming to. I'll give the location. I'll give, the person's name, etc. Those are things you can do by just taking a first responder course. And then you can actually gain some experience if that's what you want to do. And that could be for performance arts, performing arts. So say if you want to work with dancers, you want to work in, simple as like concerts. People get hurt at concerts, and not just fans. It could also be the people dancing on the stage. It could be the performer on the mic. You could be that person that obviously you listen to the music and enjoying your time, but also working. And you could do that on weekends. So say if you don't have classes on weekends, you could do that as well. So that's something that I'm glad that I went to CSM and learned some of that stuff. LinkedIn, you get to see some of those posts or random things of like, oh, here is, sports business page. Like now there's more pages that you can shadow, you can actually follow, and then you get an understanding like, oh, we have an internship opening up. So like the NFL, they'll have internships, and you can apply for them. And those things are like really cool. I know the Indianapolis Colts, I know is more pre-COVID. I'm not sure what's happening now. Indianapolis Colts, they usually have a program. They select 1 to 2 physical therapy students or physical therapy athletic training students, and geared a lot more towards physical therapists who want to get like an internship. It's almost like a fellowship. It's not governed by the APTA, but you can actually get like a firsthand experience of a physical therapist in NFL being in meetings. So the meetings with the coaches of like injury reports, and eventually you'll gradually give injury reports to the coaches. You will be involved in not say the final decision making process, but your assessment on that player, whether they're post surgical, whether they are just injured after a game or practice, and then you will start working to treat that player. Say if they're on the road and because they don't travel with all their players, you may start working with that player. You're reporting to that physical therapist. I think it's still Aaron that's there, still reporting to that physical therapist. You're then like you're networking and learning from other healthcare professionals there. So they'll have like a physician assistant, a physician, your orthopedic surgeon, your general medicine doctor, the chiropractor they have there, massage therapist as well. So you actually get to really see what does it look like if I were to work in the pro sports, because it's very similar in the NBA as well. Not exactly, but similarity. And you can do that like that year long thing. And I know Kevin Wilkes has their fellowship. So some of these things that I would say, like LinkedIn, hit that up. I know I went on that tangent, but I just want to talk about LinkedIn, how important it was and how important it is. And students at any level can learn and tap in to like being ahead, just being ahead, and not having to wait too long for your timing when that timing, when it opens up. So once that happened with our residency, no, I just had a conversation. It didn't go anywhere. We had a little bit more in-depth conversation about like some of the experiences I have, what I wanted to do. And from then, that medical director gave me like feedback, gave me some direction, and that was very helpful for me. So it wasn't like, oh, we'll get you a job next year. It wasn't about like just getting something in return. I got the feedback like, hey, go ahead and do your sports fellowship. And of course, at that time, I wasn't sure if I want to do that. I knew I wanted to make some money. Let's be honest. I knew I wanted to go either, do travel therapy, because I did that for a couple months, make some money. I knew I wanted to do sports, but at that time, and sometimes a little bit now, being a female, you might have to prove a little bit more. So that's just how it goes. That's the world we live in. If you want to work, especially in this male dominant sports, working with males, maybe we need you to kind of specialize a little bit more. So at that time, I applied for, I found out about Wake Forest's, their university, their physical therapy sports fellowship program. It was actually very new, like in the beginning stages, and they wanted to get some accreditation. And I knew like there was nothing I could lose. And I knew I wanted to take that risk. And that risk was like, if they don't become accredited, it's not really going to be honored by the APTA. But I also knew like, I really want to hone in on my skills. That person, in particular, program director, he went to Duke's residency and fellowship program. I knew it was going to be the beginning stages. Talking with him, he wanted to be more practical. So the residency I went to at Duke, and then talking to other people at other residencies like VCU and other places, it's a lot more didactic, heavy on just make sure you learn the material. And with that learning of the material, you most likely will do well on your sports certification exam. And at that, I didn't study for my sports certification exam. I'm not just trying to gloat, but that's how good your residency program should be. That you understand the material, you can apply it, and you can take an exam after, and you feel very confident about it. So when I decided to do that fellowship, that's when I realized there was didactic focus as well, but it was a lot more specialized. So I got to work with, yes, the Division I athletes there, but I was able to then, take a player from the very beginning, say beginning of the injury, plan out what I wanted to do, work alongside the athletic trainer because this was a physical therapy sports fellowship. So not saying I wasn't gonna act like an athletic trainer, but I need to work on like working with the massage therapist there, working with the chiropractor there, the director of rehab there, the athletic trainer, or all around this player and getting a sense of, okay, this is the injury. What is our prognosis? What are we thinking? How long it may take? What is the other side of things? I need him to play in a week, or this injury may require surgery. Do we need surgery? Do we not need surgery? Okay, let's utilize our orthopedic surgeon who, we've used over the years. I'm new on scene, obviously, develop a relationship and see like, is this something that we can conservatively treat with like rehab and some sports specific drills and then plan this out? Or do we need to have surgery and then talk about like what is that going to look like? So that is what I really liked, and it actually carried over very well into my job with the Thunder. So as you get your caseloads as like a physical therapist in the athletic training room, and then you get a caseload in the clinic. So this clinic in particular at Wake Forest, it was offsite and it was called just Wake Forest Sports Medicine. It was attached to it used to be called a different facility, but now CP3, so Chris Paul's basketball academy. And the way that was set up, it wasn't actually, they were affiliated with one another, but not necessarily saying that they worked hand in hand. It was just like, we can utilize their facilities. And then obviously if Chris Paul came by, he could utilize our facilities and, such. So I saw a lot of high school. So I got to see then more high school, a lot of weekend warriors, like a lot of mixture. And it was like a very, really great setup. So then I get to also have a mentor at the clinic as well. But then in the athletic training room, I had another mentor, and that was the program director and also the director of rehab. So then as I'm going back and forth, most days I'm there at the clinic, may not spend a lot of hours because maybe you need to cover football practice or basketball practice. And as you go back to the athletic training room, you have certain players that you keep up with, that you have that plan that you're working on communication with the athletic trainer and the other healthcare professionals that I talked about. On top of checking in with the director of rehab, understanding that as he's looking and you're going through some of your cases, you may have a day that he shadows you, vice versa, you're working in. So you can see how it builds on that residency, builds on that specialization, and then you get a little bit more autonomous as you go along. So then you're like, okay, this sport, like I had field hockey, never worked with field hockey before. Understanding, okay, what does this look like? Okay, with these ladies, they may be a little bit bent over, but where are they bending from? Are they bending from their back? Are they bending from their hip? And getting understanding, like when someone comes to you and they're like talking about their back pain, and understanding then you watching the sport and doing your own research, talking with the athletic trainer as well, you can get an idea of like, oh, they're not moving correctly. Because as physical therapists, we should be movement specialists. Not saying we're perfect at it and we work on becoming experts at it, but just utilizing what are the basic movements, where are they getting their movement from, what movement do they not possess, why are they having that pain. So that was kind of really cool, just working with different sports that I probably would have never thought of working with, and applying that as like movement patterns to other sports. So it wasn't just like, oh, I'm not working with tennis at this time, so let me work with field hockey, but understanding like even those sports have similarities in their movement pattern and their stance, like as you can see as you start studying other sports. So as that came along, that's when a lot of organizations were reaching out, and I kept in touch with physical therapy, like the Thunder, I should say. So another thing, keep in touch with your contacts. You'll get busy, even if it's just a hi. You don't have to ask for anything. You just, same thing when you do these programs, they're going to send you out to conferences. They're going to send you out to different, just different events and meetings. Reach out, even reaching out to the other fellows and other residents, other physical therapist students, because there are going to be physical therapy students there. Just because you're a resident or a fellow and you're trying to get to that next level doesn't mean you can't talk to students. And I'm not saying devote all your time to everyone, because you have to make sure you're doing your job, what you need to do. Biggest thing I'll just say is, like, you can still learn from that student. You can still pour into that student to then have them go far and excel. So the biggest thing is just like utilizing, just understanding your surroundings and utilizing as much of your time as you have. So when you're in these conferences, just like I went to one conference, I met a fellow at the time, just saw him all those conferences. As soon as I went to my job, I thought I was never going to see him again. Come to find out, he ended up getting picked up by a team, an NBA team. He did his time there. Then he's now successfully at Exos, doing very well, and we send players to him to work with him. So it tells you like those relationships, because you've already interacted with him. He did, fellowship elsewhere. He then works with the MBA, gets some experience there. He then goes to a clinic, and at that clinic doesn't mean he can't still work with sports. So now he can still do all those things. So understanding, even though you may not get with the team right away, or you may go with the team and may not be there for long, understanding like if you keep your relationships open, those things work out for you, that you can still work with those sports teams. Maybe you're not traveling. Now you're, in a clinic, and you get to actually work one-on-one, and then keep that relationship, or become a consultant with the team or multiple sports. So now that same particular person gets to work with not just NBA, but NFL and other sports that comes through. So that's just some of the things, like you may have like an envision, vision something in your head as, I want to do this and this is the only thing I want to do, but don't knock other opportunities, because just like I talked about LinkedIn, when I thought that message was spam, if I didn't respond back, I would have not kept that communication open. Same thing if conferences, if I just thought like I'm only going to talk to the people on the panel, I'm only going to talk to the surgeons there, the physical therapists there. I'm not going to talk to any students. I'm not going to talk to um any other like fellows there, because we're on the same level. Like, what are they going to help me with? If I didn't do that, the relationship would have not like continued to grow as things, as time went on. So that was a long tangent, but I just want to basically I would say for all the students, I just wanted to like talk about that journey. It's different for every person. But then as I'm now working then in now I'm working at the Thunder. I started off G League. G League is just a minor league level. While I'm there, um, I understand like it's a lot more hard work than I thought. But I'm glad I did the fellowship, and I'm glad the medical director for the Thunder told me to do the fellowship, because those long hours actually went right hand in hand with this G League job. So as you're there, at that time, you didn't have to have an assistant. You could do it by yourself. You can have an intern at the time. So it was great getting that experience. You're the only medical person there on the G League. You can report to your parent team, but you have those 16, 17 players and plus, meaning like practice players, injured players, rehab players, and you're responsible for all of them. And you need to work alongside then, in this case, a strength conditioning coach, the coaches, the head coach, the assistant coaches, positional coaches that work with this player. And it was a really good setup. Yes, I was the only female there. My intern that came, she was female, and it was really a good interaction, just to kind of see like it wasn't about like what gender you were. It was like, can you talk the language? Can you be personable with that athlete, that player? And can you understand what's going on? So understand going on, meaning like a lot of these players, they're learning to be adults themselves. So they may be showing up late, the respect that comes with it, of being timely, of showing up ready for practice, showing up ready for games, and communicating if they're not ready ahead of time, to say, hey, this is bothering me, my back, and this, that, and the third. Communicating ahead of time, just so you can prepare then the strength coach, you can prepare then the performance scientist that's there, your intern, when the other players show up, the head coach who's trying to start practice and they're already having their mind like they're playing, they're practicing. So then giving that heads up. So I think it was like a really good interaction. Also, when it comes to because these players are human, sometimes these players had family stuff going on. I'm not saying they had to tell you all the details, but sometimes they would tell you details. Sometimes they're internalizing it, or they, health stuff that pops up because you deal with the health thing. So, from from doctor's appointments from for general medicine, like getting a physical, the things that involve the physical, the dentist, getting mouthpieces. Those are some of the things that were cool. And as a female working with males, understanding like it's not about the gender here, about like, oh, I need to talk to another male about this. You understand like we're all on the same playing, same playing field, and you want to get the best for them and utilize your resources to your advantage, which is good. So because of how that G League, how that setup is, you become a close knit with the players, close knit with the staff there. So that means like the strength conditioning, because there's limited numbers. So strength conditioning staff member that was there, the head coach, the assistant coaches. You even had your performance science intern there, and then you had your sports medicine intern. So utilizing and then putting on different hats. So you're saying I'm only medical and I can't do this or do that, and I can't restock water or do those things. At that level, you're doing whatever you need help with, and I think that was great, to that humbling experience as well, to say you can clean tables, you can do these things. So when the opportunity opened up for me to be with the Thunder, the parent team, in the off season, it kind of transitioned to a job, because thank God I was doing well and learning on the fly. And then an opportunity opened up, and then with the Thunder. So I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I just understanding like the timing. You can't. I realized that I couldn't force. I could have in my mind like I want to work with the NBA. I want to work with this parent team, and I want to do this and that. But as everything set up in its perfect timing, while I was still at the G League, I was trying to get my hands dirty, whatever was needed, trying to utilize that, not just based on my title or based on my degree, my physical therapy degree, but understanding wanting to also grow. So still networking, still using LinkedIn, still reaching out to people that we may not have been on the same team, we may not have been in sports, but keeping circles open, understand, oh, that continuing education course. I was like, oh, dry needling. I should, dry needling is something that I can utilize. And understanding, didn't realize how useful dry needling was in the sports realm. And then understanding with spinal manipulation, um, when you're doing any type of assessment and say that person needs a manipulation, understanding like I didn't really get a good grasp when PT school, like we talked about grade 5 mobilizations and manipulation, but understanding then, okay, I need to probably do a course, and a course in a company that I know is reputable, to then utilize this. Say if somebody comes in with back pain, and if I want to use the clinical prediction rules, or if I wanted to use basically this patient's preference on they feel better with a manipulation, but what can I do to reinforce after I manipulate his back or his neck, et cetera, et cetera? What can I use to reinforce the reset that I just did? And then, reload it. So for example, then I start tying into the strength conditioning coach. Then we could start doing some movements that help solidify, okay, I did this reset on his neck. I did this reset on his back, and I did some, core stabilization exercise. I did some movement, or movement that helped him get ready for a lift or a reloading session. And then if they do some movements, I already communicated with the strength conditioning coach some of the things that we're working on, some of the things that went well, didn't go well, and they can do a movement to kind of work on whether it's triple extension, triple flexion, and that helps them then do better with driving to the hole. Or say if they want to do a fadeaway jump shot, how are they landing on that side? How's their hip mobility, their hip weight bearing? Are they stable on that side? So when they do their fadeaway, they land. We're not having a dynamic valgus moment. They're able to focus on playing and not focus on the movement, not focus on their back being jolted. So some of the things that you can see how it all plays in with one another, and utilizing your other healthcare professionals in that sense. So I would say, kind of in that sense, that's just kind of generally how that works. You're still learning. I think right now I'm continuing to learn on the SFMA, selective functional movement assessment, FMS. So it's some of the stuff like I think you will continue to learn things along the way, old things, basic things, and understanding like, do I have a good grasp on this? Can I actually assess what I'm looking at as a physical therapist? As I'm seeing this person do their inline lunge, what does it look like? What do they have difficulty with? Do they have recent ankle sprains? Do they have a hip injury? Do they move well with their hip rotation, externally for this right hip, internal rotation for the left hip. What does that look like for their tibial internal rotation as they're rotating? Because movement, whether it's basketball, any other sports, you have to rotate, pivot, you have to change direction, you have to follow what you may, reading your defense, you may go one way and then change and go the other way. And if you're not moving well in your hips, not moving well in your tibias, and it may, come to your trunk, it may come to your back in certain areas, and you're wondering why some people may have back pain, et cetera, et cetera. So the good thing is just how fluid physical therapy is. So say if this sports realm, just like pro sports, it's the same as if I went to the clinic on just like utilizing the same basic movements, basic assessment, getting my history, the subjective information. What am I observing with their movement? What movements am I going to do to then assess and come up with like what I think is going on, what is causing this type of pain or dysfunction, and then what can I do to plan. And in the sports realm, a little bit more with different healthcare professionals, what to do to actually get this player back onto the court, back onto the field, whichever setting that you're in. And understanding like you don't have all the answers, and understanding that you don't have to have know all the answers, and utilizing people around you, so then you can better that athlete. Because whatever your strengths are, you work on those, and then if you're like, I really think like this person who's a massage therapist can really help with this as I treat this. If I do this manipulation, get this person to do some like BFR, which is blood flow restriction, because they can't lift heavy weights, get them to transition to lift with this, the strength conditioning coach. What are some movements we stay away from? And then kind of getting them to the court, working with that assistant coach, then saying, okay, they're having problems, lateral movement. So driving maybe towards their right. And so we're playing defense as they're going towards their right, trying to block off, the offender. And, they have a problem pushing off, off their left big toe. So we're working on those things, just kind of thinking of how all of this works together just to make sure the athlete is, utilizing as much as their body as they can to avoid things that broken down, to work on their availability and their readiness to play, to practice. So that's basically kind of the things I wanted to like touch on. Obviously, if anybody has questions, I'm open to take any questions, but just kind of like a general sense of like the path to get to my path, I would say, to get to where I was, where I am now. And just the different journeys of working G League, minor league, and then getting here with this team, with the parent company, I should say, the Thunder. And then obviously, if anyone has questions on like what a day-to-day looks like, I can talk about that as well. But just kind of keeping that general sense, that path. I know I did a lot of talking.
That was great. Do you mind sharing what's your day-to-day?
Yeah, so if we want to talk about the day-to-day, it's going to be different whether it's a practice day, a game day at home, game away game, or away game, in season or off season. So say if I said off season, that would be like what we call summer league. So NBA summer league, they have different summer leagues. We particularly work in the Utah. We play in the Utah and the Vegas summer league. So say if I were to talk about, that's already, everything's away, everything's travel in that sense. So say if I were to talk about, we're in Vegas at this point. And I just came back from Vegas like a couple of days ago. So it's like fresh on my mind. So we're in Vegas. We have a game day schedule most likely. So we have an idea of like, okay, we're going to play a game every other day. And that's just what the NBA has set. We didn't plan that. We're going to play regardless, whether we win or lose. So then I understand like the day before, maybe a practice day and maybe a recovery day. And so at that point, I'm already thinking about what players do I need to check in with, because I want to make sure they're ready for game day. What players do I know who wait to the last minute to let you know they're in pain, to let you know they can play or can't play. And I'm going to hit them early. So I'm going to, as soon as we land, because we went from Utah to Vegas, as soon as I land, I'm texting, I'm reaching out, or I'm on the plane and I'm walking up to them on the plane and asking them, hey, how do you feel? Like we're already starting off. Like I need to know, especially if they had an injury, example, ankle sprain. I need to know that ankle sprain happened that first game in Utah. I need to know what we're doing. So by that time, I probably have a sleeve on them, a compression sleeve. On our planes, we can actually plug stuff in to a little bit that needs a little bit more of a bigger power outlet. So at this point, I might be using Game Ready on them, and Game Ready is just compression and cold, just cold compression. So I'm doing that Game Ready and putting on their ankle, or in this case, I'm maybe giving them some medicine, depending on how far away. If it's over 72 hours, I may be giving them ibuprofen. If it's within that 72-hour window, I'm probably using Tylenol, something that's not necessarily an NSAID, because I want to make sure things are scarring as it needs to, and I'm just working on pain. And the compression is going to help with that swelling. So I'm just utilizing the pressure changes and trying to avoid any type of swelling that may happen after this flight. So as I'm doing that, I check in with them afterward, after we land, making sure they're good. I may give them the Game Ready, take it to their room, and I may let them be the adults and let them set it up themselves. So whether it's like, oh, ice is down the hall, you can get some ice, put it in the machine, put some water in there. Let me know if you have questions about the machine. Have them plug it in, utilize it. I say, if you're gonna play video games, you're gonna, go out to dinner, whatever that night, give me one session before and or one session after. If you can make sure your leg is elevated, so say if you're at the dinner table, sometimes at dinner tables you have these little curtains. You get another chair so your foot is under the table, still on the chair, and it's elevated. So just working along with them, let them have their social life. If they have a photo shoot coming up, we try to work around that. So sometimes you go work on, put on some kinesio tape, all that good stuff. Let it blend in with their outfit, all that good stuff, because they have lives too. The next day, I'm checking in with them again. I'm already sending them a schedule. So how we do our organization, we like to let the players know what's coming up. So I work alongside with that strength coach. So say if it's an ankle sprain again, I already know like that morning, I'm going to see them real quick in the morning, see what the swelling's talking about. At this point, it could be a game day. So I'm trying to figure out what do they have going on. So before film starts, I'm seeing them before film. I want to get an idea of what does that swelling look like? What does that ankle look like? What movements do we need to do? So just that's like physical therapy, athletic training skills 101. But then I'm communicating with that strength conditioning coach. What are some things you want to work on? And some of those things may include, well, I want to do some hopping with them. I want to do some skipping, et cetera, et cetera. Let him do what he needs to do. We're present. So you can call it co-treating, whatever you want to do. We're present there, so we know what's going on. I need to know then, do I need to tape this ankle? Do I need to do a little heel lock to it? Whatever I need to do, that's where some of the athletic training skills come in, to help make them feel nice and stable. Say if it's just a grade 1 ankle sprain. After that, I'm already communicating with my medical director. Most likely he's not there. So I act as an interim medical director. I'm then contacting him, give him a heads up like, hey, he's a go, or he's game time decision. He may be minute restrictions, et cetera, et cetera. Then I'm going to our head coach. The head coach, I want to prepare him before if I can, before he has his coaches meeting, but especially before he has a film session. So they need to know, like, as they're studying the opponents, they're studying those players, like, oh, this person's an active shooter. This person is really good on defense. They like to, hang out in the paint over here. Da, 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 da. I'm just trying to let them know, like, yo, this player's ready. They're available tonight. Their game time decision, etc. If it's really a case where I need to get this player to play, say if it's playoffs or something like that, or like a tight something, like we need them to play, I'm seeing them again after film. So you can just understand, like, sometimes you're utilizing your time where it's like getting this player to move, seeing how they're doing, follow up your assessment, test, retest, just like you learn in school. Test, retest, test, retest. So some of those things that we kind of do as time goes on to, obviously you're seeing other players. As time goes on, we leave for the arena. We're preparing, we're bringing tape, we're bringing some more things that we may need. Tables, obviously just regular massage tables. And we're just doing some treatment, whatever that's just feel good, give some input into the system to optimize their then activation they're going to do with the strength conditioning coach. That strength conditioning coach already has activation set for that player. So it could be working on extension-based things. It could be working on flexion-based things, core assisted things, anything that gets them going, whether it's ballistic movements, et cetera, et cetera. They're doing that, and it flows right into them doing like a pregame court work. Pregame, every player has their ritual, and I don't mess with it. So I kind of just go along with what they need. If they want tape before this, they want tape after the team meeting, I kind of flow with them however they want to. They want the right ankle tape first, I tape the right ankle first. Like I just give them, just let them be. I just try to keep it as consistent as possible because they like consistency, they like routine, and I just want to make sure they feel mentally just ready to go because I'm making sure physically they're ready. The strength coach is doing the same. They head into their film session at that time. I'm just any last minute things that pop up, whether it's talking with the physician that's either attending physician, making sure they're good, know where they're sitting at the game. I'm talking to then the paramedics and EMTs there. So I need to know where they are. Where is their stretcher going to be located? What hand signals do I need to use? Do we use the fist? Do I use a cross? Like what do I need to do? So making sure anytime everybody's on the same page, I let them know if a player's on the ground because I know the player probably at that time. I know like they need extra time on the ground to process. I don't rush out there. Or when this player's down and they're there for a while, let's actually start walking our way over there. Walking our way over there. So in Vegas, we had some instances where I needed to get onto the court. So getting onto the court at that point, I learned this from an NHL athletic trainer. I'm not running on scene. I'm not, and I know it sounds like, oh, why are you not in a rush? But if I'm running, my heart rate is elevated. Am I thinking straight? I don't know. I'm probably thinking like, oh, what's going on? What's going on? I get there and I need to think clearly. I need to see the environment, make sure the scene is safe, see what's going on, and then go and based on make the best decision to first make sure they're safe, get them off the court, and see can they get back into play? Do we need to take them to the back? What do we need to do? So at that time, all that's going on, if I go on the court, assess the scene, assess what's going on, if it's like they sprain their ankle or they're talking to me or they're really angry and they need time to process or they need someone to calm them down, I do whatever we need to do to make sure they feel good. If they need to go onto a commercial break, they'll go onto a commercial break. Like at that point, I decide, do I need to get EMS here? If it's an orthopedic thing, can I get them going? If I need to utilize the players around me to have this person, onto their shoulder and just hop off, whatever we got to do. And then we just make sure the communication is clear on like telling the coach, hey coach, we need a few extra minutes. He needs to be somebody needs to sub in for him. Or hey coach, he's actually fine. He just needs a minute to just like walk this off. Or I need to take him to the back. I need you to do a concussion screen, make sure he's good to play. And then we'll just have someone, whether sometimes it has been my intern, sometimes it's been another physical therapist, and sit on that front bench to occupy my seat if I need to go do an assessment in the locker room. So that's some of the stuff that we do. And obviously, physician is there to help if we need to. I'm keeping communication with all appropriate staff. And then we kind of guide it through there to know what our next steps are, what our practice looks like, making sure you have all our medical supplies. So I have an athletic training kit that I have with me at all times. That kit has first aid stuff, but also other things. Just like guys have different hairstyles, I have different hair accessories because that has also stopped play before. So I want to make sure, like, if they need a headband, if they need like whatever I need, I have that in the kit. And if some of them are like, I want Blistex, I have Blistex in the kit. Like we have some of those things to make sure they feel prepared and ready. And we're not stopping play because if it's an infection control, which basically is just first aid I need to do, I have 30 seconds to get that job done. And I have to be gloved. If I'm not gloved, because obviously for safety, bloodborne pathogens, you also get fined. So I'm making sure I'm not getting fined, the team fine. I have gloves on, do what I need to do, but I have 30 seconds. If I don't do that within 30 seconds, the team has to take a timeout. And how some games get towards the end, if we needed that timeout and your athletic trainer used it, your physical therapist used it, you're kind of like it's done. So I don't want to, I just want to be prepared and ready. The AED, which is like that defibrillation, basically, I have that, and I have other things in there like a tourniquet, things that God forbid if I ever need to use. That's also nearby. It could be near like another physical therapist, athletic trainer, so I know where it is. All the staff, medical staff, knows where it is. So if I need anything, it's there and we're ready to go.
All right, Dr.
Dr. Brooks, thank you so much for speaking to us. I had a quick question about residencies. I know you said you went to a sports residency, but could you? It seems like you knew a little bit about an ortho residency too. Could you kind of give pros and cons of each,
Ooh, good
of
question.
how to get to professional sports, or if it doesn't matter which one?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So people I've worked with and then colleagues like on other teams and other settings, they have done either or. So it really just depends on what you want to do and what that program offers. So if I were to talk about Duke's ortho residency, talking with ortho residents that have been there or while I was there as well. Their program was set up in like 6 months is an outpatient setting, and then 6 months is 6 months in the hospital. So with that orthopedic residency, if you wanted to be on that outpatient side and gain some of like, if you want to work outpatient, want to work in sports, sometimes that 6 months in the hospital can be a little tough for you to actually see like, okay, I might not work with lines and IVs and all this stuff. Like, so I would say that was the only thing that was like a con when talking to some of those ortho residents. But then say like Ohio State University, talking with their residents when they did their orthopedic residency, they actually got to work, get paired up with other residents. So it was like women's health or um, sports residents, neuro residents. So actually it was a plus in that sense because yes, they were learning in on the ins and outs of like orthopedics in the body and stuff like that. May not be sports specific, but they had like a really well-rounded approach of like making sure and understanding like neuro ties into ortho just like ortho ties into sports. um so I would say like it depends on the program you go to as well. You won't get the athlete like interaction, that on-site hours with when you do an orthopedic residency. So keeping that in mind. But a sports residency, especially if you're not an athletic trainer, is probably the route I would say, is to let other teams know, hey, I have some athlete on-field hour experiences. I worked with athletes in a Division One setting, or in my case, when I did my residency, it was like high school. But at least it showed like I had some interaction with athletes, a training room, how hectic that gets, not set hours, and understanding like I'm able to take on these hours, I'm able to take on these clients, work in the clinic on top for rehab, and also work cover football, be ready to go onto the field, then cover football practices, and then have training room hours, communicate, then if it's high school, communicate with their parents, or say if in a fellowship sense, communicate with the strength conditioning coach. So then that sports teams know like, hey, I don't try to do everything on my own, but I communicate well because I have to communicate in order to do this residency or this fellowship. So I would say that helps in that sense. In sports residency and orthopedic residencies, you do get surgical observations. So that was like really nice. You can see like, okay, we're gonna do this meniscal repair, this meniscal root repair. We're dealing with an 8-year-old with an ACL tear. How are we gonna do, what's this repair? Why is that different than an adult? Or this person's quad is actually not as strong as we want it to. I think we're not going to do the patellar tendon, bone, actual like repair or reconstruction, I should say. We're going to use one of the hamstrings. We're going to do that. Just some of those things that when you have either residency, you're going to actually be able to get exposed to that sense. And the didactic wise, the orthopedic is really geared that you're going to do very well in your orthopedic specialty exam. Say with sports, you're going to do really well at your sports. Your sports specialty exam is very similar to, like, say, if you did in your athletic training exam, yeah, BOC is what they call it, BOC exam. So they're very similar in that sense, because they'll have like sports specific questions. They'll talk about the C spine. How do you stabilize the C spine? Like some of those things, spine boarding, you won't get on an orthopedic exam. You may actually you get a little bit of that sprinkled in a sports exam, but your orthopedics will talk about like clinical prediction rules, and then also like when it comes to like rehab focused, and how you would approach certain things, say like a frozen shoulder, like things that you actually see but you may not see in sports. You may not see a frozen shoulder as often compared to an outpatient clinic, but both are very successful. And a lot of people in sports, pro sports, have either both, or they did ortho or their sports residency or have that certification. So either one works. It's really just your preference at this point. for sure.
Can I ask you about like how you learned a lot of these different types of mechanics? I see that you were doing a lot of like studying different sports and how they move. Is there any like podcast books,
Ooh,
video,
good question.
people that you're learning from?
Ooh, podcasts and books. For movement. That is actually really interesting. I wouldn't say I do, I probably should. But I do know on YouTube, FMS, they have some good stuff and it's free. So you don't actually have to pay for it. And like looking at their videos as well as very helpful. Altis, if you can kind of jump in on some of their they did a lot during COVID time, I would say, but if you can jump in on a lot of their podcasts and different meetings they have, usually they are free. You just have to pre-register, and you can hear a lot about that. So sometimes when I'm on LinkedIn and people I've connected with, they may post something to say, "Hey, this conference, virtually, you have to sign in or register by this date." And a lot of times they're free, and I jump on those if I can, if I have time. Especially Altus, they had some stuff out there in FMS where they had different speakers, so they talked about movements, and it didn't necessarily say like, oh, with um, martial arts, than soccer. It wasn't like that clear to say that's that movement fit with that movement, but they talked about general movements, and you can kind of see like that defensive stance or triple threat or how all those things actually correlate with one another. But those those speaking events, like for example, one was talking about like the foot, and you're like, how important is the foot? And you're like, okay, yeah, I gotta push off my foot. But like understanding like the first ray and how like some people who either injured their great toe, they had surgery on that first metatarsal, or any of those things, anything with the joint, if they don't have that extension and understanding that it affects their dorsiflexion, then it affects their knee. Sometimes they may have predisposed to like knee pain, anterior knee pain, or patellar femoral joint pain. And then understanding like how are their hips moving, how it's rotating, and just seeing how it affects up the chain. I thought about that, but to be honest, when I was in physical therapy school, even sometimes like residency and fellowship, you don't always put that together unless you keep seeing all these cases and you start putting them together. And that's what I would say with the residency and fellowship helped. But some of those courses, online courses, MedBridge has some stuff too. But I would say like especially Altus, FMS, when they talk about like, if someone doesn't have the weight bearing dorsiflexion that's even symmetrical, I mean, it could be not like what's considered normal for the population. Some sports they may gravitate to having less anyway, but any of that asymmetry, say if it's like greater than 5 degrees we think is like human error. But when it's greater than that, understanding like, okay, what's the side they may have that quad tendinopathy on, or what's that side they don't stand very well on, or say if they're tall kneeling or half kneeling, um, they're like very wobbly. They do the inline lunge for the FMS. Like when they have that right foot forward, they're able to keep their balance. But when they have the left foot forward, they're just trying to like, hold on, grab on to something for dear life. And as you start thinking about those things, and it's like, okay, what do they have, or where, like as they move, if basketball, for example, they like to drive to the left side of the goal, or when they cross over, they always come back to the left, and it's more than maybe their left hand, and maybe they propel very well with their right foot. They have that great toe extension, the dorsiflexion and pronation that they need, I would say, and then the plantar flex away. But maybe on the other side, they're having trouble with, and you get an idea of like they're compensating. They learn to play the game in a way that actually optimizes or goes towards their strengths, and they try to avoid at all possible with their weaknesses. So then you kind of start putting it all together. It's like, okay, what does their tibial internal rotation look like passively? What it looks like actively? And you can learn that stuff too with the SFMA as you do those breakouts and getting an understanding of like, and there's like free videos too on YouTube, but I would obviously do the correct course if you can, or know somebody who does the SFMA or FMS and learn from them as well. If they have material, learn from that, because you can kind of see like, okay, again, if they don't have the great toe extension of that left foot, maybe they're not propelling well, even triple extension coming up, maybe they're not propulsing well, or towards their right. They're not accepting weight onto the ground. You're looking at then if they're on their left knee, they're even wobbly. So then you're thinking like, man, they have a weight balance, a weight bearing issue, maybe through their hip and their lower leg. So then I can't expect them to keep successfully driving or crossovering to their right, driving to the hole towards the right, or even soccer, blowing past a defender towards their right. If they don't even have that movement, because their body will adapt because they don't have that range of motion. They then won't have the range of motion, won't have the strength, won't have the propulsion to then go towards their right. So those are some of the things I would say, like those resources that were helpful, but then I had to kind of do some digging and then also utilizing my resources. So people I worked with, knowing what their strengths are to understand like they know movement really well or they study boxing or martial arts. And I see them actually incorporate that in basketball. But then they work with people in other sports as well, their past job or whatever. And they teach them like how, getting the movement from the floor, you like Newton's third law, equal and opposite, like utilizing that, like, but if they don't utilize their entire foot or their 3 points of their foot, then they may gravitate towards using all of their toes. They may then have claw toes. You like putting this all together, you're like, yo, maybe that's why you have left anterior knee pain. Like some of those things you kind of look into, and then understanding how it just correlates with different sports as you just literally study different sports, studying film. So say if you work in sports, it could be high school or anything, they usually videotape and record games. And obviously at the YouTube now and ESPN, they got videos and replays and highlights, and you can just break it down. You have people on Instagram that take different plays like DeRozan or whatever and different moves, and they like break it down, look at their footwork, and you can understand like as they're pronating and plantar flexing one way, they may be dorsiflexing one way, and then using that great toe extension on one side, and you start looking at, okay, well, what if a martial artist is doing something and they're standing this way, which we may think in basketball triple threat, but then in martial arts we're not calling it that necessarily, but thinking about like what is their foot doing, then what is their tibia doing, what are their hips doing, so then they can rotate their trunk this way, but or rotate their hips the opposite way, things of that sort. And then again, carried over to baseball, think of a swing. you know how does the swing, how do they utilize their foot, their their legs to their hips, to then their trunk, to then their arms, and thinking of like how that also needs to unwind. Could think of a pitch or outfielder, how does that all unwind, and thinking of when people have pain and it's like at the elbow, is it the elbow, or is now they're having pain at the elbow but it was really coming from their shoulder because of some weakness they have or range of motion deficits or fatigue that carried and influenced other things. So I would say like more so just like being your own learner, but then trying to find the little small things and seeing how they like show up in other sports or show up in different things. So that's why I like ESPN, obviously with the highlights and different things, but you get different sports, you can kind of see different things. And then things, places, platforms like Altus, YouTube is really good. Even Instagram now is becoming very informational. Like you can get some good information out there, but obviously bringing that back to some of the research. So PubMed, as simple as it is, as free as it is, you can kind of look at some of the research out there and actually understand, like when they talked about first ray movement, great toe extension, some of those things, and you can kind of see the correlation. And then you can tell when something is bogus on social media, something's real, something you can utilize, and then build it from there. So it's like honestly a lifelong process, because you are continuing to learn so you can grow. And you're just getting that understanding of like looking at different things and finding correlations or differences in them. For sure.
So I have a question. It's more so a personal question on your end.
Mm-hmm.
So how is your work-life balance? Like how do you
Ooh.
manage work and manage your life?
Work-life balance. That's a really great question. I would say it depends on you as a person. So I've always liked to be on the go. And you also have to have a partner that understands about being on the go, or a partner that is on the go. So say if I was talking about myself, my single self before I was married or before I was even seriously dating, I knew like, okay, I need to, oh, for example, undergrad, because we did athletic trainings a lot of that time. With undergrad, I knew, I went to UGA, you wear your UGA clothes, you're in the training room, work your job X, Y, and Z. As soon as my shift was done, I had to change clothes. That's just me. When I change clothes, I can say, oh, I'm off work or I'm not working now. I'm not in the training room. And that little change, physical change in clothes helped me mentally to be like, okay, you're good. Like, go get a breather, whatever that is. And for me, was working out, or for me, it was, putting on, like, when it was hanging out with my friends who weren't athletic trainers, putting on nice clothes, wearing heels. Like, it was like something for me that I need to do to kind of separate, like, you're working 400 hours per semester on top of your 16 to 18-hour credit hours. And then, I mean, I'm just saying, like, you need to make sure mentally you're good. So early on, trying to find that time management, that's what I really liked about athletic training. Exercise, sport, and science can be like that. Say if I was when I was doing a little bit of research, but it wasn't as much as when I did athletic training. And I really I had to plan and be flexible and say, okay, I'm going to be a part of, my family's Caribbean. I'm going to be part of the Caribbean Students Association, but I'm going to support the African Student Association by going to this event. This event starts at 7 p.m. We don't have a game. We have practice, and I'm going to shower at work, and I'm going to have my clothes there, and I'm going to go straight to that event and show my support. And having friends of all different, not just having physical therapy friends or athletic training friends, was like very useful for me to grow from them, learn from them, and not be in my own little circle, and isolate myself. So I said that's what's for me. And then as I got into physical therapy school, yes, have physical therapy friends, but I try to keep as much as I can, keep in touch with the people that I went to undergrad with, or undergrad with, and then just people like at that time I was going to a gym and LA Fitness, probably people have heard of it, and people I met at LA Fitness, trying to keep in touch with them and have that as socially like an outlet. And then getting towards then when I met my significant other and understanding like how serious this is going to be, and him, I just told him up front, being very open about your goals, very open about your desire. So it was like, yeah, I want to be with you. And he said he wanted to be with me. And I was like, this is the lifestyle. Like, I'm doing physical therapy school, but I'm going to gravitate towards doing sports. And then putting it out there, which I sounded very silly at the time, I want to work in pro sports. Like, I said that, like around, I told my husband, not husband at the time, 2015, and having somebody support you and not say that, think that you're crazy. Because to be honest, when I did say that to my residency program, they thought I was crazy. When I said that to other people, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, that's cool. And and it was never like, oh yeah, you could do it, let's go for it, you got it. My husband was like, okay, let me know how I can help you. And so literally, I figured out what my strengths and my weaknesses are. My weaknesses definitely was writing. So when it came to writing for a cover letter, things of that sort, I knew he was better at writing, and I knew I was better with like my hands-on, like learning practical skills, like anything that I had to demonstrate. We worked as a team. And when it came to then, it was like, oh, we got to move now. That's when it came to, do we want to do long distance or can you come with me? So that's where you understand where I had to make a decision. Do I want this dream, or do I want to be with this person, or can this person, who believes in me, act on it and come with me? So then that's where it gets tough for a lot of people to say like, this is what I want to do, but I like my relationship. I want to be with my relationship, but what is best. So at that point, he was very flexible. He was like, I can, get a license wherever you are. And he was able to move with me. So, and then at that point, that was in North Carolina. When I decided, like 2 years later, when I actually did then got the job in Oklahoma, no one knew what Oklahoma was like. We never went to Oklahoma, never heard of Oklahoma besides it's north of Texas. And that's when it was that decision, like, can you move right away? And unfortunately he couldn't. And that's when we had to understand, like, okay, what do we need to do to make this as a successful relationship as possible? And then that's when we started figuring out, what are some things we need to do? What are non-negotiables? Like, okay, every 10 weeks we need to see each other. Or when I fly to this city, if you can come meet me there, great. I may not have much time, but I want to dedicate, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, because the sports realm things change. You gotta be very flexible. So we did that for the first year because he could not get his license to transfer over. He had to take another board exam. And for him, it was like they had that waiting period to do supervision hours. So we made that work. And then obviously when I was here or he was here, I wasn't always here. So like 10 months out of the year, we're traveling, to be quite frank. So it got to the point where it's like he can go see family. We make sure we talk to each other, whatever we need to do. Whether I'm going to bed because of the time zone I'm in, or he's going to bed, we talk to each other, whether that's stinking 10 minutes because the person's about to fall asleep, or it's like random phone calls throughout the day, just talking to each other, having that outlet, checking in, keeping that communication open, and not being also up under that person. Like, what are you doing? Who are you with? Like, we're not, we develop that trust early on. And that's what I would say, develop that trust early on with that person. So they know what your goals are, vice versa. And then you guys are helping each other along the way. So it's not like you feel like you're trying to preserve your marriage every single time you're working on your goals, and you thinking that person's maybe insecure in themselves, vice versa. And it affects your job, whether you like it or not. It can affect your attitude on the job. So having being confident yourself, working on knowing yourself, that person being confident, them knowing themselves, understanding what they are signing up for. If they really love you and you really love them, what they're signing up for. And it's not like, it's not like this 24/7, but you guys like really just try to figure out like what can we do to make sure we're in each other's lives, um and we're like present, and we're there. So that's what I say, it's an ongoing thing, because I feel like some people, they can't handle long distance, and then when it comes to, then you're not long distance, but then your work has you going all over the place. I think it depends on what you guys decide to do, what you want to do, and what you're comfortable with. Because if you're not comfortable with it, or the other person isn't, that's where it gets a little tricky. And I think that's where you need to keep that communication open, and you're being honest with your partner being honest with you on how you feel.
Thank you so much. Does anyone have any other questions?
I got a couple. Sorry.
No, you're good.
How tight knit is the community, just like the physical therapy community and the let's say the NBA? I do see that we have our own alumni here, Jamal. So like, are we all like pretty close knit? And is there any kind of room to grow after you become the physical therapist of like a specific team, maybe like a director of rehabilitation or something, or what are like your future plans?
Oh, okay, good questions. So say like tight niche with the physical therapy, I would say like within the NBA, I think it's what you make it. So if I started off my G League with the minor league team, and I didn't, if I didn't reach out to Jamal, just for example, if I didn't reach out to Jamal or a person from another team, or he didn't reach out to me, et cetera, you can easily get lost in your own world, get lost with your own team. Because I've met people my first year, obviously I'm going to say names or teams. I met some people that didn't last even the rest of the season, because the season gets hard. So if you want to be on the island, you go for it, but it's really not the route to take. But not saying like we have to be, up under anyone, but it's more of just understanding like you're not alone. And I think that's what I liked about the G League, especially starting off G League. You understood like, even if the other person's an athletic trainer or a physical therapist or a physical therapist athletic trainer, we're kind of in the same boat. Like, we're trying to like first survive. We don't want to die just because of how the hours can be kind of long and the travel. But then a lot of times we're alone from our significant others, and we are the people we're traveling with are like our family, basically. Family you're around all the time. So then when you see somebody, either they're struggling too because they're trying to keep people healthy, or they may have a lot of athletes who are hurt. They're one-man show. They're also trying to make sure their communication is exhaustive amongst your own organization, trying to make sure everything is seamless, the players are working as they need to. That's when you start to realize like, I need to contact the other person. I need to reach out to that person, or say if I'm as simple as I'm gonna play that team and we just get there the night before, it's the middle of the night. So then it's like the next day, the day of, you're like, hey, or that person, that hosting team can say, hey, what's up? Just saying hi. I know you're busy. I'm busy too. I just want to say hi. Like those simple things help a lot. I'm gonna say a lot of people, even at the NBA level, they have done that as well. And even after the games, going up to that other team, physical therapist, other team athletic trainer, and just saying hi. Do you need anything? I know those words are something that people say regardless. They may not think about it, but it's actually very personable when you go up to that person on the opposite team and just say, how are you? Or hope you're doing well. How's the season going for you? Do you need anything? Do you need anything from the physicians? Do you need any tape? Like, did you run out of supplies or stuff like that, especially with people on long road trips? So I would say, like, that is, I think, based on the person wanting to reach out and also receiving on the other end as well. But I do think it has improved a lot, especially even with COVID, and making sure people don't feel like they're alone. I know, like, there are a lot of teams out there very successful at just like being so hospitable. Even though you're working for the other team, very hospitable, and be like, if you need anything, let me know. And some that are like really quiet, and it is what it is. But I think if you keep reaching out, I notice how it has grown a lot. And then when you get to, like, say, the NBA combine that happens in May, and then when you get to like draft time, and maybe players are going through different organizations, and you're communicating with other physical therapists and other teams, or then just NBA Summer League. That's another great way. Just be able to, like, talk a little bit more, maybe like have 30 minutes, an hour of your time, and just chit chat with that person. I think it's gone a long way. I think it's going to continue to grow. When it comes to like the growth aspect of being on the NBA, I think it really depends on what that person wants. Like, say for me, I would like to, the NBA TA, or the Athletic Training Association, because I'm an athletic trainer for the NBA, they have an executive board. Like, that's something that I would like to be a part of, and as a member, trying to be a little bit more active. So they have their social media um, presence and stuff like that. So whether I can help on social media side, whatever I can help, and not necessarily thinking like I have to be on the forefront of anything, just any of that niche. It was something I want to do in that sense, because I think representation as a female really does matter. Not just because it's male dominant sport X, Y, and Z. It's just that there are other people out there that want to see, or want to, like, even visualize someone that may look like them or resemble a family member or something, that just helps them know, like, it's possible. You could do what, if you can do whatever you want to do, if you work on it, and you work on your education, your continuing education, your certifications, you work on your relationships, how to improve yourself, just improve like your worth to an organization. So some organizations, they allow for you to be medical directors or head athletic trainers. I'm not necessarily a head athletic trainer at this time. That would be a nice goal of mine if that opportunity presents itself. And just understanding, like, the growth opportunity, whether it's duties and now like supervising people on the G League or a minor league team. And I think it's just going to continue to grow as I keep evolving and growing myself amongst how I can help my other, like, fellow colleagues within the organization, and then within the NBA, hopefully beyond the NBA, because also keep in contact with people like in the NFL, and not as much in MLB as I should. But there are a couple of people I reached out here and there, and I think keeping that communication open is like very useful, just to kind of like help other people, and I get help. It's very reciprocal. Um, so that's basically kind of my take on it,
Thank you very much.
for sure.
All right. So, any last questions? No.
Awesome.
Oh, we got one. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Brooks, for speaking to us tonight. I know I can speak for myself. I really appreciate it, and I hope everyone else really appreciates all the information that you gave us. Um, Is there any way that we can stay in contact with you if we have any questions or anything like that? What's the best form of contact that we can reach you if possible?
Yes. Thank you first off for inviting me. This was great. Very glad to just spread the news. I do get a lot of messages, so I'm very grateful if I can have like a live chat, so it's a lot easier so others can hear on those, like some of those experiences and such. I'm trying to be a little bit more active on LinkedIn, but on LinkedIn for sure. It's just Dr. Vanessa Brooks. And I'm try to get on these messages as well. I think as we had like this little break, we have like a couple week break kind of thing before we like kind of get into more off season things. I try to utilize my social media more. So even on YouTube, I'm trying to do a little bit more on YouTube, and it's again just Dr. Vanessa Brooks. Email address is actually vdoyley@gmail. So it's my maiden name. So V for Victor, D as in David, OYLEY@gmail. And I'm just trying my best to kind of piece through different messages, even direct messages I get, just to kind of help other people. But these live chats and be able to speak with students on a like I would say in more numbers is very helpful. So I really do appreciate this, and I hope I get to continue to spread the news.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time again.
For sure. Thank you, and everyone have a great evening.
Likewise.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Awesome. Okay, so we're ending the stream. Thank you, everybody. So I'm dropping stuff. So basically, that was with the St. Augustine's physical therapy program. It went very well. Sorry if you couldn't hear the questions. I tried to repeat some of the questions back so people on other platforms can like hear and understand what is being asked. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for those who stayed the whole time. Oh my gosh. Really appreciate you guys so much. Sorry for all the messages that I have not gotten to. I'm hoping this helps with a lot of people. Also, if you could refer back to it if you had any other questions as well. And also try to be a little bit more active on social media to help other people because there may be other follow-up questions and stuff like that. And I think if I can create them as videos, it will help other people. So when these direct messages come through, some people may have the same questions or it could help other people, and I'll try to do a better job with like sharing with everyone. So that being said, I am going to fly to see some family tomorrow, so I need to get my life together. See some crazy stuff in the background, but that's how life is sometimes. Oh yeah, so I see, can you reach out to speak to my cohort for athletic training? Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm open to speaking to athletic training programs and physical therapy programs. So say if you do have a school, reach out to me. Say if you're on IG, go ahead and direct message me. I'm trying to get on these direct messages. I know I'm behind, but I'm trying to get on it. And then YouTube, those are on YouTube. I'm also trying to do a better job at sending out more content, even if it is live videos for helping students and those things, and just talk about my path and journey. And of course, if I know other people who have different paths and journeys, I'll try to bring that up in my talks as well, because everybody's path is different. And yeah, just grateful for this opportunity, and I appreciate you guys for staying on. Go ahead and log off. Thank you so much, Deb. And then also in the future, hopefully in the future, we could talk, like have other people on to talk about, their path as well, and their path in pro sports and that such. So I hope we can figure that out. But appreciate you guys and have a great night. I'm gonna see if I can end this properly. There we go. Appreciate y'all. Bye, YouTube. See you later.